We've hit about the halfway mark of the regular season across hockey. So let's look at the top 5 prospects in the Islander system and talk about each one of those players. I haven't done a top 5 in over a month. I think the last one I put out was on November 9th. So it's been a while. A lot has happened within the system, and there's been some fluctuation, obviously, within the prospect pool. And then by that, I mean within the rankings of the prospect pool. Now, if this is your first time watching one of these top 5s, let me just kind of quickly break down how I build my rankings. My rankings are based off of NHLE, and that's NHL expected. And what that essentially does is it takes a player's production at whatever level of hockey, SHL, Liga, college, junior, all of that, and essentially boils down that production rate at an NHL rate. So if a player is putting up 30 points in 40 games at the QMJHL level, the SHL level, and let's say for Merrimack at the NCAA level, what does that translate to for all those three at the NHL level? So that's how we can rank these players. If one does better, then they rank higher. That's just how it works. But as you know, defensemen don't put up the same number of points as forwards, and goalies, they don't put up any points at all. So how do I account for that? When it comes to defense, they score about 1.6 fewer points than forwards do. So I give them a 1.6 inflator to kind of measure it out. Now, what about goalies? They don't produce, right? They don't put up any points. So there's no production rate. And again, production rate is points per game. Well, goalies do have something kind of similar, though, with save percentage, right? That's shots or saves per shot. The only problem there is that goalies, a great goalie will have a 920 save percentage. A good goalie will have a 910 to 915. Most forwards and defensemen don't put up .920 or .915 shot or goals or points, per game at any level. A great one will, but not an okay one. So it's not really fair to give a goalie an NHLE based off of a 920 save percentage because it's not really the same thing for forwards or defensemen. So unlike defensemen or even forwards, what I do for goalies is I have a deflator. Now, the number I've put in there, I'm not going to repeat just yet because I'm not sold on the exact number yet. I feel like I'm at a good place where I can add goalies to the ranking within forwards and defensemen, but I feel like I still have to toy with the deflator just a little bit. But that's what I've done to kind of put forwards, defensemen, and goalies on a level pegging. So with that aside, here's the top 5 going into the Christmas break. Kiefer Bellows 1, Otto Ratu 2, Otto Koivula 3, Jakub Skarek 4, and 5 is Robin Salo. So let's go through these players one by one. First one, Kiefer Bellows. And right away you might be saying, why is he in here? He's not necessarily a prospect. And that's where the necessarily comes in. I still see him as a prospect because he has not galvanized or put himself into an NHL spot for sure. He's at the NHL level right now, and it doesn't seem that they're going to send him back. But for now, I'm still considering him a prospect because he's still a fringe player on that NHL team. Unlike Oliver Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson, who are guaranteed NHLers, they ain't going back. With Kiefer Bellows, it's not really sure just yet what we've got at an NHL level. So right now, he's sitting at a 34.167 NHLE. So his production rate as it stands now puts him at a 34-point NHL player, which is pretty good. But the thing is that, as you know, the eye test doesn't necessarily match that. Now, it's not to say that Kiefer Bellows can't put up 34 points at the NHL level, or even more. It's that he's not going to be put in a situation to do that because of his play off the puck. Right? Like, we know production doesn't necessarily matter as much as it should in a Barry Trotz system. Just look at Kiefer Bellows' production over the last couple of games and then his ice time. The ice time is going down while the production is still there. And that might drive you mad, but that's because Kiefer Bellows isn't doing exactly what the coaching staff wants him to do. And yes, the production might be there at an offensive level, but it's not really there at the defensive level. Right? So they're fine, like, yeah, you can put up a goal, but you're going to get scored 2 against, then what good are you then? Is their mentality anyways. And so for Kiefer Bellows, I still have him as a number 1 prospect here, 34-point NHLE. I suspect if he can figure out his game at a defensive level or an off the puck level, you can see this go up because the ice time is going to go up. The second player on the list is Aturatu, and I don't really know what else to say about him. Like, he's been absolutely phenomenal at the Liga level. So much so that you might even be able to say, like, looks like you could have did well. Look at the last 10 games played at the Liga level. Every team, their last 10 games, you could hit top of the table. Top of the table. He, being Aturatu, has played 11 games for them. So his contributions, he's not just like an extra player and they just happen to be winning. He's driving a lot of that. Look at his production right now. 13 points in 11 games. He's doing very, very well and helping them get to that next level where they're one of the top team over the last 10 games at the Liga level. Meanwhile, Karpat, not so much. They're bottom tier over the last 10 games. They were one of the top tier teams in the Liga level, and they're now kind of starting to fall off. They still got quite a few points in the bank where they're not completely written off, but they're no longer one of the top 2 teams in the league. 3 is Otto Koivula. I've gone over this a number of times. There's no surprise here. It's starting to drop down a little bit because the production is kind of dried up. It's not as meteoric as it used to be, but just like Karpat, he's got a bunch of points in the bank where this number is still going to be up there, and by up there I mean like in the higher 20s for a little while still. We've already gone over what Otto Koivula is and what he needs to do to get to the next level, so we won't waste a whole lot more breath there, but there's no surprise, or there should be no surprise to see Otto Koivula in the top 5 for the next couple of weeks at least. Number 4 is Jakub Skarek, the first goalie to make our top 5. He's done well at the AHL level. There was a little bit of a blip in November, you can see here, but he's kind of bounced back with that. The team in front of him isn't the greatest. They put up a lot of goals, but they're not really great defensively. And that's where he is supposed to mitigate a lot of those problems. And that's not necessarily fair now, is it? But that's the Islanders' way, both at the NHL and AHL level. So no surprise there from an organizational standpoint. And over the last couple of games, he's done well. He had 2 games in back-to-back nights over the weekend and did very, very well. A .951 save percentage combined. He stood on his head, specifically in the second game there. They lost 3-1. He only had 2 goals against. The third one was an empty netter. But he faced a lot of 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, so odd man rushes all over the place. It really had to stand on his head because his team just couldn't figure themselves out. He's doing well at the AHL level. I don't know what his ceiling is, but it seems that right now he's trending towards a NHL backup, which is perfectly fine. The final player on the list is Robin Salo. No surprise here that he's made it. The points are there at the AHL level, but they're not there at the NHL level, which is why it's starting to drop down. Now, is there cause for concern there? Absolutely not. No way, shape, or form. Yes, he's not putting up points at the NHL level, but if you expected him to jump to the NHL and just start bucketing in points, that was never going to happen. There's an adaptation period that he needs at the NHL level. You just got to get used to the speed and the physicality. And sure, he's played at the AHL level, but that doesn't mean he could jump up to the NHL level and be like, I'm good, guys, don't worry about it. I learned everything I need to know at the AHL level. That's just not how it works. The AHL is not the NHL. It's not a one-for-one comparison. It's close, but it's still not one-for-one. So it's going to take a little bit for Robin Salo to adapt to the speed and the physicality before his game could start translating more offensively. And just look at Oliver Wahlstrom and Noah Dobson. It's taken them a couple of years, or specifically Noah Dobson, a couple of years to get to where he is now. Oliver Wahlstrom's taken a year. But it's going to take probably a full year for Robin Salo to reach his, I'm going to say, potential at the NHL level. So that NHL is probably going to drop down a little bit more, but that's only because he's already at the NHL level. By this time next year, there's no way that either Robin Salo or Kiefer Bellows are on this list because they're both NHL regulars, in my opinion. That's your top 5 prospects going into the break based off of NHLE. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have not subscribed yet, hit the button. We're trying to get to 600. And if you have, thank you.